Hello friends, in Anatomy and Physiology class, this is Hassan Nafid, your Anatomy and Physiology instructor at Madison College in Wisconsin. Tonight we're going to talk about the nervous system. The nervous system is one of the two systems in our body that controls, coordinates, and perform a lot of functions that oversees many of the functions of other systems. The nervous system works in collaboration with the endocrine system to control the cardiovascular system, the urinary, the respiratory, the digestive system, and other systems of our body. The nervous system is almost the control system of our body. The nervous system is divided into two major categories or two parts, functionally and anatomically. These are the peripheral nervous system and the central nervous system. The peripheral nervous system is structured from the spinal nerves, the cranial nerves, the receptors, and the ganglia. On the other hand, the central nervous system is structured and built from the spinal cord and the brain. Tonight we're going to talk about the brain. The brain is enclosed or is contained in the skull. So the skull is the home of the brain and is this bone structure that protects the brain. The brain is also protected by the meninges, and the meninges are layers that protects the brain inside the skull. I have one of the meninges here, and this is the outermost part of the meninges is called the dura. The dura actually is the toughest and outer part of the meninges. We're going to take a look at the anatomy and the regions and describe the structure of the brain. The brain consists of major four parts. These are the cerebrum or the cerebral hemisphere here, the diencephalon, which is considered the most upper part of the brain stem, the brain stem, and the cerebellum. The cerebral hemisphere is considered the most superior part of the brain. The cerebral hemisphere is thrown into folds. These are ups and downs, or what you call gyri and sulci. The sulci are the depressions or the grooves that you see on the surface of the brain, and the gyri are the elevations that you see on the surface of the brain. The cerebral hemisphere is divided into lobes by gyri or by sulci and fissures. These fissures and sulci are as follows. This is known as the longitudinal fissure. It runs from the front to the back and it divides the brain into two big parts or two symmetrical hemispheres or two parts. This is one side, this is the left hemisphere, and this is the right hemisphere. Put them back together and they are forming the whole cerebral hemisphere. So this is the longitudinal fissure. In the back, you're going to find the transverse fissure, which separates the cerebellum from the occipital lobe of the brain. On the side, you're going to find the lateral sulcus, and this sulcus here separates the parietal from the temporal lobe. This is the temporal lobe, this is the parietal lobe. This is the frontal lobe. This is the occipital lobe. So we have these lobes that constitute the cerebrum. Frontal lobe, parietal lobe, and the two sides, temporal lobe. And in the back, you will find the occipital lobe. Underneath is the cerebellum. So the transverse fissure separates the cerebellum from the occipital lobe. Also, we have the parieto-occipital fissure, which separates the occipital lobe from the parietal lobe. This is the parietal lobe, the back of the parietal lobe, separated from the occipital lobe by the parieto-occipital fissure. On the other side, as we said, the lateral sulcus separates the temporal and the parietal lobes, while the parieto-occipital sulcus separates the occipital lobe from the parietal lobe. Taking a look at the diencephalon, which, as we said, the superior part of the brainstem, will identify the optic nerves and the optic tracts. And here in the middle, where the two optic nerves cross or decussate, you will find the optic chiasma. So optic chiasma is the area where the two decussate. This is the olfactory bulb, two on each side, and these are the two olfactory tracts. So olfactory tracts and olfactory bulb. This is the pituitary gland connected with the hypothalamus here with the infundibulum or the stalk. This constitutes the diencephalon. The brainstem on the other side is structured from the midbrain, and the midbrain is formed by the colliculi, or what we call quadrigeminum, and the pons and the medulla oblongata. The medulla oblongata is where you find the vital centers for respiratory system, cardiac, thermoregulatory system, and the vasomotor area or vasomotor center. Taking a look at the midbrain and the brainstem and the lateral vision or lateral side view, we will find here the corpus callosum, and the corpus callosum is that white fibrous tissue that connects the two hemispheres together. So if we put them back together, we'll put back the two cerebellar hemispheres and we separate them gently and slowly like that, you will find out that the corpus callosum is that tissue which holds the two hemispheres together. So corpus callosum, you go down here, you're going to find the lateral ventricle. This is the lateral ventricle. This is the third ventricle, connected with the fourth ventricle by the aqueduct. So lateral ventricle, third ventricle, aqueduct, and the fourth ventricle. Ventricle produces cerebrospinal fluid, which circulates in the brain cavities and also in the spinal cord. In the back here, we're going to find the pineal gland or the pineal body. Here we identify the pituitary gland, the infundibulum. This is the hypothalamus and the thalamus. And this is the central mass of the thalamus. This is the choroid plexus. This is the mammary body. This is our cerebellum, and this area is known as arbor vitae. The cerebellum, or the small brain, is found in the back. It occupies the posterior fossa of the skull. It is that part of the brain that is responsible for coordination of movement. Diseases of the cerebellum might present with ataxia or incoordination of movements. Thank you for watching this video.